Everyone, in just a second, I'm going to be introducing author Saul Austerlitz, and we're going to be talking about this book. Look at that book cover. Isn't it beautiful? I love it. But anyway, you're going to love him, okay? He is an amazing writer, and, he's going to tell us some stories about this book, and I think you're all going to have, a lot of fun watching him. So everybody, here is Saul. Hi, everyone. I am so excited because I'm speaking with author Saul Austerlitz, and we are talking about his brand new book called Just a Shot Away. Look at that picture. I wanted everybody to be able to see this because this is a hardback, and it is such a beautiful cover. So thank you so much, Saul.
Thanks so much for having me.
It was so much fun to read. I thought I knew a lot about the Rolling Stones, okay? But I did not. You taught me a lot. But let's just start with the title. How did you come up with the title to this?
Well, we were kind of bouncing around with some different song title ideas, and this is the one that kind of jumped out at me and at the people at St. Martin's as one that really had a lot of symbolic relevance here, and that kind of spoke to the Rolling Stones' relationship to the story, and also the kind of more general violent undertones of the story I was trying to tell.
Yeah, and for everybody, I'm going to read the whole title so they understand. It's called Peace, Love, and Tragedy, the Rolling Stones at Altamont, which I have to tell you, I was born in '64. And my dad was a huge Rolling Stones fan, so I kind of grew up with them. But I really did not know much about Altamont. So when I first got it, I was like, oh, okay. I do remember, it's like you have memories of somebody saying, did somebody die? And, I didn't really know until I read this. But this picture of Mick, is that taken at Altamont or no, just another picture of him?
It was taken by a photographer named Baron Wollman, who was a photographer for Rolling Stone, and I believe that he took it at the concert.
I thought so. I was looking at, first of all, everyone, you got to get this book. It has such great pictures in here. And I thought that it was, but I was like, well, I just wanted to make sure. And anyway, so now we can start talking about like what made you attach, because you look young, okay? So this wasn't a part of your world. And
No, no.
So tell me how you got to love this story enough to write a book on it.
So I've written previous books on film and television and music, and was kind of casting around for a new story to tell, and had been thinking about writing about some of the American documentarians of the 60s and 70s, especially Albert and David Maysles. And the more I thought about how I wanted to tell their story, the more I was specifically thinking about, as much as I liked films of theirs like Grey Gardens or Salesman, I really wanted to write about Gimme Shelter in particular.
Right.
And once I kind of had that realization, it made sense to not just focus on the story of the making of the film, which I think is fascinating in its own right, but to tell the story of the concert as a whole, its planning, its execution, its aftermath, and kind of weave the film into that larger tale.
Yeah, first of all, I only knew about the Rolling Stones, so I didn't realize all the people that had performed here. Okay, I did not know Santana and Jefferson Airplane and Crosby, Stills. These guys were in. No wonder it was called the Woodstock West. I don't know. I'd only ever heard about the Rolling Stones performing, and probably because it happened during the Rolling Stones, so maybe that's why I only knew of that. But I'm telling you, like, it really. I'm so happy that you wrote a book about the story about it, because I don't think enough has been talked about with it.
Yeah, and I think that Gimme Shelter has formed people's memories to some extent, so that, we see only the briefest glimpses of the other bands that played. We see a bit of Jefferson Airplane because there was violence during that set as well. But in addition to that, I think that the importance of the Grateful Dead to the story is erased to a large extent, in part because they didn't play at the show. So, the absence of footage, the absence of an event, is hard to depict in a documentary. And so I feel like it often gets forgotten how important they were to this story as well.
Yeah, tell me, first of all, I love these chapters. I love the chapter titles that you in this book. But I love the way that you had the story flowing. But tell everybody what happened with Jerry Garcia, because it's kind of funny. It's kind of a funny story.
So the Grateful Dead had been pretty intimately involved in planning for this show. they had been the ones that had the free concerts in San Francisco, where they had given fans, an hour or two to show up to Golden Gate Park and come for a free concert. And they had been the ones who had the Hells Angels to protect their equipment and to protect the generators. So they played a fairly significant part in planning for the show. And on the day of the show, when kind of faced with the reality of what was taking place out there, they decided not to play. They felt like it was too dangerous, too intense, and I understand how they came to make that decision, but it does feel in retrospect like the Rolling Stones ended up doing something somewhat more courageous in facing the audience and facing the crowd, and in doing their best to try to calm things down with their music as much as possible.
Yeah, after what happened during the Jefferson Airplane set, which you go really into detail with, Marty Balin is his name, right? He gets knocked out, which, and then Jerry Garcia's like, yeah, that's just way too, it's getting out of control out there, and if anybody wants to watch, I loved watching on YouTube. You can actually see the videos of Mick Jagger, type in Altamont and Rolling Stones, and you'll see that Mick Jagger really did try. Like, he really tried to calm everybody down. And I thought that was really interesting. I loved watching that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think in 2018 too many people associate Mick Jagger with kind of hippie good feelings, but it's kind of funny to hear the language that comes out of his mouth, it's kind of brothers and sisters, let's all cool out, like, let's all be one together. So he's trying in his own way to calm some of the tension in the crowd, and in a way to calm the Hells Angels. And when you look at the footage, it's clear that Keith Richards is the one who's more willing to say, no, it's those guys who are the ones who are causing the trouble. It's not some sort of, bad guys on all sides, everyone's misbehaving situation, but rather that there are predators in the crowd.
Yes. Yeah, that he noticed that what was going on with and you go into a lot of detail about that. But let's talk about Meredith Hunter, because I guess, like, who knew his name? We know somebody died. And did anybody else die? I was trying to remember. Did anybody? Was he the only one?
Some other people died in accidents at the concert.
Right, but he died, right in front with the Hells Angels. You go into detail. I don't know how much you want me to talk about it, but, it's pretty much well-known history. But you go into a lot of detail and, with the Hells Angels. And, because of where, I'm 53, I didn't know, we hear about the Hells Angels, but I really didn't know a lot about their organization, so to speak,
Yeah, it was interesting to me to learn more about it. I'm not someone who knew a ton about biker history before researching this book, and it was kind of fascinating to learn about what the early years of biker groups were like, what the kind of impetus was for them to form, and how some of that very understandable impulse ended up kind of mutating and deforming into the Hells Angels, into this violent, unabashedly racist group of bikers who ended up serving as the security force at Altamont.
Right. And like, first of all, I never knew that about them. Like, I didn't know that anybody would hire them for security, but I knew so little about them. But I do remember in the 70s it being like you feared them if they came to your town, or, I kind of remembered that kind of a build-up. But you spoke with a lot of people to get this book done. And so, tell everybody, like, what you found out about Meredith Hunter, and talking with, people who are close to him.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was very important to me to try to tell the story, because I felt like that was the part of the Altamont tale that hadn't really adequately been told before. He was a name that people knew, but his life had only been told in as much as it started on the day of the concert and ended that same day, and there was not a lot of context. And so I ended up speaking to Meredith Hunter's sister and to his niece and learning a bit more about him and his family history, and also about the aftermath of his life, about what it was like to be part of his family after he had been killed, and what it meant to carry that burden around. And that to me was a really elemental part of the story that hadn't adequately been told before. And that was essential to understanding what had taken place and what it meant in a larger context.
Right. And, I think, I feel like this book is kind of dedicated to him because it does tell his story, and there's lots of pictures of him in here, and it tells all about the concert, but I mean, you devoted a large section to talking about his story,
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, that was something that was really important to me, and I felt like it had gotten lost, that Meredith Hunter's life had ended up being something that was about rock concerts and misbehavior at public events and the Hells Angels, and not so much a story about race or about African American life or about what it meant to lose a family member. And I thought that those were really crucial as well.
Yeah. What do you think the aftermath about? What did it change in the way that concerts were held after that?
Well, I think it ends up being part of a shift away from the loose planning of the late 60s, where the assumption was we're all on the same team. We all want this concert, whichever concert, to be a success. Therefore, we don't need to do all that much to ensure people's safety, to provide them with food to eat or water to drink, to make sure they have a place to go to the bathroom. Good vibes will win out over any difficulties that may emerge. And I think that Altamont is the end of that. Woodstock, which happened a few months prior, also had all sorts of difficulties, all sorts of planning inadequacies, but ends up being perceived as a success. And I think that Altamont helps people to realize that the kinds of planning and foresight that maybe were negatively associated with the adult world or with the straight world were actually a necessity, were things that were needed and no one could depend on everyone's good feelings or everyone's desire for a positive outcome.
Absolutely. Can you even imagine today? Like them, somebody huge, some rapper, anybody saying, you know what, I'm going to put on a free show. Come whoever wants to come. It's like, oh my God.
I mean, the only similarity in recent times, I would say, is maybe the updated Woodstock concerts of the 90s that ended with the mudslinging and nothing terrible happened, but that same sort of sense of chaos.
Right. It just is like they did, their hearts were good about it because they really did just want to put on a free show for their fans. And but they just didn't realize, it seems like they just didn't realize that bad things can happen and people are doing drugs. I mean, more than anything, you're taking an audience full of people on drugs, it's just, and drinking, and it's just not going to work out well.
Yeah. And part of it also is that the bands mistakenly believed the Hells Angels to be their allies when they weren't. And I think that it emerges from a misunderstanding that if we're opposed to the police and we're opposed to kind of the workaday world, and you are also, then we're on the same team.
Exactly.
And there wasn't enough thought put into, well, who does this leave out? Who may be harmed by affiliating with a group like the Hells Angels?
Yeah. So, first of all, before we let you go, I mean, I'm going to show everybody this cover again because it is so beautiful. But are you working on another book? I mean, this book just came out at the beginning of July. Is there anything else in the works for you?
Yes, I actually have another book that should hopefully be out next year in a somewhat different vein. It's going to be a book about the TV show Friends.
Oh my gosh. When is that coming out?
Hopefully next fall.
Okay, well, you know where to find me, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I want to tell everybody, I mean, Saul, you are a brilliant writer. This book read so easy. I mean, it isn't just about the fact that it, the subject matter. It's that you made it interesting and it's so easy to read and follow through. And I spent all day with it yesterday and I loved it. So
thank you so much.
I can't wait to read your next one. You know where to find me. Call me. I'll read it early.
Absolutely.
So I will have all of his links listed below. I will be giving away this book on Instagram. And thank you so much for talking with me.
Thanks so much for having me today.
Okay, we'll talk soon, all right?
Thanks.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
everyone for watching my interview with Saul, and I hope you liked him as much as I did. He was amazing. He is an amazing storyteller. I cannot wait for his next book on Friends. Oh my God, I can only imagine because I've read this one and I know how good he is. So I will be giving away this book on Instagram today. So go over to my Instagram, my Writing Fun Instagram account, and you can win a chance. You can have a chance to win a copy. How about that? So everyone, thank you for watching.